Two coworkers park in the same lot every morning. One drives a leased luxury SUV, the other a used sedan, and by retirement, the gap between their bank accounts will exceed $1 million.
His name is Daniel. He pulls in at 8:51 every weekday in a graphite, gray Audi Q7 he signed onto 14 months ago for $927 a month on a 39-month lease.
He doesn't park wherever is closest.
He parks where the plate is visible from the third floor glass walled meeting room, the one where prospective accounts get their first tour every Wednesday morning.
Daniel runs a business development team. His salary is $97,000 a year.
When a new partner comes through the building, Daniel is the one who personally walks them to the lobby, makes a point of gesturing toward the window, and lets the car do the rest of the talking.
The Audi isn't how he gets around. It's a costume engineered in Germany, financed in monthly installments he can barely sustain without stress.
Meanwhile, a woman named Claire arrives at 8:19 every morning in a 2019 Honda Accord she purchased outright 3 years ago for $21,800.
There's a faded scratch near the rear wheel she has never addressed, because cosmetic wear doesn't change how the car performs.
Claire manages operations for the same firm. She earns $115,000 annually.
Daniel's net worth is $14,000, credit card balances, the remaining lease obligation, a personal loan from a trip he charged last spring, and a retirement account sitting at $9,400 to which he
contributes just 2% of each paycheck. Claire's net worth is $1. $2 million. Daniel looks wealthy.
Claire is wealthy. They badge into the same office. They take home comparable salaries. The chasm separating their financial positions wasn't created by a stock tip or an inheritance.
It was created in a series of small, repeated, compounding decisions. And the most consequential of those decisions can be observed in that parking lot every single morning.
One person chose the appearance of wealth. The other chose the engine of it. The car is precisely where those two paths diverged.
This video is about what the wealthiest Americans actually drive, and why the answer will likely confuse you, because their relationship with cars is so entirely different from the cultural story.
Most people have absorbed that the vehicle choice becomes a direct window into the philosophy that produced the fortune.
Let's get into the data.
Thomas Stanley's National Study of Millionaires, one of the most thorough investigations of affluent Americans ever published, found that the median amount millionaires paid for their most recent
vehicle was $31,367. Among those worth $10 million or more, the median was $41,997. At the same time, the average transaction price for a new vehicle in America has now climbed above $48,000.
Pause and absorb that inversion. Ordinary consumers are routinely spending more on a car than the average millionaire did.
Not because millionaires can't pay more, because they've made a calculation that most people haven't. An Experian automotive report found that 61% of households earning above $250,000 a year, households with the annual income to write a check for a Range Rover without breaking a sweat,
choose to drive Hondas, Toyotas, and Fords, not occasionally, consistently. Just 39% of those high-income households selected a luxury marque of any kind.
The most popular brand among surveyed millionaires was Toyota, followed by Honda, then Ford. Mercedes ranked fourth.
BMW ranked fifth, only 23. 5% of millionaires owned a vehicle from the most recent model year.
More than half drove something at least 2 years old. The typical millionaire's car is roughly 4 years off the lot with around 41,000 miles on the odometer.
These are not people without choices. These are people who understand something the American consumer class has been systematically trained to overlook.
The car is the single most efficient wealth destruction mechanism in the consumer economy outside of real estate, and unlike real estate, a vehicle has no capacity to appreciate.
It begins shedding value the moment title transfers. A new car loses approximately 20% of its worth in the opening 12 months alone.
After 5 years, roughly 40% is gone. By year 7, the typical vehicle is worth less than 1/3 of what someone paid for it at signing.
That math plays out against you every single day you own a new car on a payment. The average monthly car payment in America hit $767 at the close of 2025, per Experian data. A growing number of buyers now carry payments north of $1,000.
84-month loan terms, 7 full years of payments, have quietly become a normalized option at dealerships across the country.
What this means in practice is that enormous numbers of Americans are making payments on a vehicle worth less than what they owe for the overwhelming majority of the loan's term.
Negative equity, a depreciating liability, and instead of redirecting that cash towards something that compounds, they are steadily funneling it toward a machine that loses value while they sleep.
Let's look at the math on this directly because the math is where the real story lies. Daniel leases his Audi Q7 for $927 a month.
Over the 39-month lease window, his total payments reach $36,153. He owns zero equity at the end.
He turns the keys in and immediately signs a new lease because returning to a less prestigious vehicle feels like regression to him.
He'll repeat this cycle for the next 3 decades of his earning years, averaging roughly $850 a month for a vehicle whose title never reaches his name.
Claire paid $21,800 cash for her Accord. She drives it for 8 years.
When you spread her purchase price, maintenance costs, insurance differential, and running expenses across that ownership window, her effective monthly transportation cost averages around $310.
After 8 years, the car still runs reliably. She sells it for $8,500, reinvests in a comparable used vehicle for $22,500, and repeats.
The monthly gap between Daniel's approach and Claire's approach is approximately $540. $540 a month, invested at an average annual return of 8% across a 30-year career, grows to roughly $805,000.
Read that figure one more time. Over $800,000, not from a high-risk bet, not from picking the right stock at the right moment.
From a car, from the routine, repeating, compounding consequence of the gap between a $850 transportation habit and a $310 one, sustained over a working lifetime.
That is the mathematical distance between retiring with choices and retiring with constraints.
It is the distance between financial independence at 60 and financial dependency at 72, and it originates in a vehicle sitting in someone's driveway, selected based on the signal it sends rather
Then the wealth it builds, Claire's $1, $2 million in net worth wasn't assembled through an exotic investment method or a windfall from a relative. According to the Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires, 88% of American millionaires are self-built.
Claire is a member of that majority. Her wealth came from a persistent, decades-long gap between what she brings in and what she sends back out the door.
The car is where she guards the largest share of that spread.
Her vehicle decisions alone account for an estimated $650 of her overall net, worth more than half of her total accumulated wealth, from a single recurring choice she made at 27 and has simply
repeated on an 8-year cycle ever since. The Ramsey study also found that 94% of millionaires persistently lived beneath their income capacity.
Only 31% ever averaged 6-figure annual earnings across their careers. 1/3 of them never crossed $100,000 in a single year.
The 5 most common occupations in the millionaire database were engineer, accountant, teacher, manager, and attorney. Teachers, a profession that popular culture has coded as financially modest, appeared more frequently than surgeons or technology executives. Because the profession was never the primary variable, the spread between earnings and spending was.
And the car is where most people allow that spread to collapse.
Now I want to explain why the car, specifically, out of every possible consumer category, creates the widest separation between those who accumulate wealth and those who don't.
3 reasons drive this. The first is raw magnitude. Vehicle payments rank as the second largest monthly household expense in America, behind housing.
At $767 a month on average, a car payment exceeds what most families contribute to groceries, retirement accounts, or emergency savings.
When that single line item runs $300, $400, or $500 higher than the baseline cost of functional, reliable transportation, the excess alone overwhelms every other efficiency the person might try to
build elsewhere.
You could eliminate every streaming service, prepare every meal at home, pack your lunch daily, and fight every recurring charge on your statement, and the combined savings from all of those
Behavior still would not offset a $500 a month transportation overspend. The car is the large stone.
The subscriptions are gravel. Most financial content focuses on the gravel because gravel is comfortable.
The stone is where the actual wealth is decided. The second reason is time span. Unlike a clothing purchase or a vacation or a restaurant splurge, a car payment doesn't end after one transaction.
60 months, 72 months, 84 months. It becomes a standing deduction from your financial life, automatically extracted, running in the background for nearly a decade.
And because the human brain rapidly normalizes recurring fixed costs, by month 7, you stop registering the payment as a choice.
It becomes the financial terrain. You arrange the rest of your budget around it without questioning whether it should exist at all.
But it was never a fixed cost. It was a decision made in a few hours on one afternoon that has been deducting from your wealth, building capacity every month since.
The third reason is social architecture. No consumer product in modern American life carries as much identity weight as a vehicle.
Your car is evaluated by your neighbors, your colleagues, the person sitting across from you at dinner, the valet, your family at every holiday gathering.
It broadcasts a signal about your economic standing to dozens or hundreds of observers every day.
And because this culture has deeply fused visible spending with the concept of success, the signal a leased Audi projects is, this person has made it.
The signal of 4, your old Honda Accord projects is, this person is somewhere in the middle. The suffocating irony is that the data runs precisely backward from those assumptions.
The Accord driver is statistically the more likely millionaire. The Audi driver is statistically the more likely candidate for negative equity.
But human beings do not conduct financial assessments visually with any accuracy whatsoever.
So the person quietly building generational wealth looks unremarkable, and the person quietly dismantling their financial future looks aspirational.
The social feedback loop compounds the error because everyone around you is making an identical mistake and treating your participation as evidence of its wisdom.
Daniel receives compliments on his Audi. No one has ever said a word about Claire's Accord. Daniel's car generates social currency.
Claire's generates silence.
But Claire's investment portfolio generates approximately 8% per year, steadily accumulating in the background while Daniel harvests compliments that cost him $927 every month. As the saying goes, the compliment economy runs on your wealth. Stop paying the admission price. Once you understand this dynamic, the entire psychology of vehicle purchasing flips.
The person in the understated car is not someone who settled for less.
They are someone who recognized that the admiration of strangers is a transaction where they absorb all the cost and receive nothing that compounds.
Every dollar diverted toward a car that signals status to someone who will forget your face in 5 minutes is a dollar permanently removed from the account that funds your autonomy.
Wealthy people have reached a point of peace with appearing unremarkable to an audience that has no stake in their financial outcome.
This is the exact behavior Sarah Stanley Fallaw, daughter of Thomas Stanley, director of research at the Affluent Market Institute, and author of The Next Millionaire Next Door, identified when
she surveyed more than 600 millionaires. Frugality, she found, was among their defining traits.
Her most referenced insight from that research cuts directly to the car question: purchasing beyond your means, spending in place of building retirement assets, and consuming in expectation of
Future wealth makes you financially captive to your salary, even when that salary is substantial. That last phrase, consuming in expectation of future wealth, is a precise description of Daniel's situation.
He drives the Audi because he perceives himself to be moving toward affluence, and the vehicle is a preview of the arrival.
Except the vehicle is the obstacle. Every $927 directed to the leasing company is $927 that never enters his retirement accounts, his index fund, or his brokerage.
He is staging a version of his future, while the actual future erodes beneath the staging. Remember this truth: you cannot preview the life and build it at the same time.
I want to deal with an objection here because I can already hear it forming. But I need dependable transportation. An inexpensive car will create more in repair costs than I save.
Let me address that with the available evidence.
Consumer Reports annual reliability rankings consistently place Toyota, Honda, and Mazda at the top of the durability spectrum, the same brands that populate millionaire driveways.
A 2019 or 2020 Honda Accord or Toyota Camry, purchased used in the $18,000 to $22,000 price range depending on trim and mileage, is capable of covering 200,000 miles or beyond with nothing more than
Scheduled maintenance. These vehicles aren't mechanical gambles. They are engineered for longevity that outlasts most loan terms.
Cheap cars break down. Objection applies specifically to vehicles purchased in the $3,000 to $4,000 range with no mechanical inspection and 150,000 miles already registered.
Nobody is advocating for that.
The position that millionaire behavior actually reflects is a used vehicle in the $15,000 to $30,000 range, 2 to 4 years removed from the showroom floor, sourced from a brand with a documented
reliability record, purchased with cash or financed over no more than 36 months. That vehicle has already absorbed its most dramatic depreciation.
It may still be under manufacturer's coverage or close to it, and it is built to serve reliably for another decade, plus with basic care.
A Wall Street Journal survey found that 35% of respondents believed you had to drive a vehicle worth $75, zero or more to credibly signal wealth.
When Thomas Stanley Cross referenced that threshold against his millionaire database, more than 90% of actual millionaires would have been disqualified from their own category by that
definition. 90% of real millionaires are not driving what popular culture associates with millionaire status.
The entire perception to reality gap is the argument. Let me run a direct 30-year cost comparison so you can see the full scope of this across both trajectories.
Path A. A buyer finances a new $46,000 vehicle at 7% interest over 72 months. Monthly payment $814.
Total paid across the loan term $58,608. At the 6-year mark, the vehicle is worth approximately $18,000.
Net direct cost $40,608. The buyer then trades in and begins the cycle again.
Over 30 years across 5 cycles, Patha generates approximately $200 in direct vehicle spending, not including elevated insurance premiums, premium fuel, and higher maintenance costs on newer
models. Patha never owns a fully paid vehicle for longer than a few months between cycles.
Path B, a buyer purchases a 3-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle for $22,000 cash, drives it for 8 years, and sells it for $7,000. Net direct costs $15,000 over 8 years, or roughly $156 per month. Over 30 years across 4 cycles, Path B's total vehicle spending is approximately $60,000.
Direct lifetime savings compared to Path A, $140,000, but the direct savings figure dramatically understates the real number because Path B invested the monthly difference.
The gap between Path A's $814 and Path B's $156 is $658 per month. At 8% average annual returns over 30 years, those $658 monthly redirections compound to approximately $980,000.
Nearly $1 million from a vehicle decision, from the systematic choice to buy a used Honda instead of financing whatever the dealership's calculator suggested you could carry.
That is the reason millionaires drive $30,000 vehicles. It is not performance of restraint. It is not self-denial dressed up as virtue.
It is not indifference to quality.
It is arithmetic, accumulated, compounding decades. Long arithmetic that rewards one approach and quietly dismantles the other, regardless of whether anyone in the parking lot notices.
Difference. Now I want to move past the numbers because pure mathematics never fully explains why most people don't adopt the strategy that obviously serves them better.
If the spreadsheet were the whole answer, every American adult would drive a used Camry and retire at 58.
That's not what happens. The reason lies at a psychological level below the numbers. The vehicle has become the primary identity artifact of American economic life.
More visible than your home, which your neighbors see, more omnipresent than your clothing, which your coworkers observe.
Your car is seen by everyone. People in adjacent lanes, fellow parents at school pickup, the parking attendant, the first date you're driving to meet, your extended family when you arrive at every
gathering. It transmits a real-time broadcast about your financial position to an audience of hundreds daily. And in a culture that has consistently framed visible consumption as the surface expression of internal success, the broadcast from a new luxury vehicle says, "This person is thriving."
The broadcast from a well-maintained 2019 Accord says, "This person is managing." The entire irony is crushing.
The Accord driver is statistically far more likely to be the actual millionaire. The luxury driver is statistically far more likely to be leveraged past safety.
But financial reality is not observable to the human eye, so the wealth builder looks average and the wealth eroder looks accomplished.
And the cycle feeds itself because the people around you are all making the same miscalculation and reading your participation as proof of concept.
Daniel collects steady validation for his vehicle choice. Nobody validates Claire's, but her portfolio compounds regardless of anyone's opinion about her car.
The investment account has no interest in optics. It responds only to consistent, repeated deposits made possible by the gap she has protected for years.
When this clicks for someone, it reframes the entire purchase dynamic. The driver in the modest, reliable, unglamorous vehicle is not settling.
They have simply elected to stop funding other people's impressions with their own financial future. The wealthy have accepted that appearing unimpressive to people who will never examine their balance sheet is not a loss.
It is, in fact, the transaction that made the balance sheet possible.